Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We've got two Fulbright stalwarts who will be sharing their experiences and their knowledge about Fulbright. We've got Dr. Greg Kiker, who's a professor and grad coordinator and also chair at IFAS Department of Agricultural and Biological Engineering. And we've got Dr. Kumaran Muthusami, who's a professor in nonprofit management and community organizations in IFAS, Family, Youth, and Community Sciences. Both mouthfuls. But anyway, welcome. Dr. Kaika will go first. And if you have a question, just put it in the chat and I'll make sure Greg knows and he can answer it. And then, or if you prefer to wait at the end, you can too. Yeah. So thank you, Greg. I'll turn it over to you. Also, the session is being recorded.
Thanks, Claire. Yeah, it's always a pleasure to be here. I'm Greg Kiker. Yeah, I'm chair of the Department of Ag and Bioengineering. I'm not grad coordinator anymore. Rachada Munir Pirakul is now grad coordinator, thank goodness, and he's handling that. But yeah, I've always given a thing on how to win a Fulbright. So, but again, I can't promise that. For a while, I was actually batting almost perfect, where everybody we helped and actively got working with won Fulbrights. That's not always the case, but we can almost always guarantee you're in the final round. And the best part of it, because you never know how many are going to be awarded, different things happening, but you can get, there are things you can do to increase your chance to be in the final round, which is where I know we can get you there. So let's talk about that. Again, I've already got a mistake that's my phone number has been changed because I moved into Katie Malaccio's old office. Now she's dean. So that's 6743 is the thing. I should have changed that, or just give me an email. We can meet, especially to talk over your specific situation. You may not want to talk about it or have all the questions you want, but I'm happy to meet. I've met with many each year. I met with several Fulbright people to get on to different things to that. So that being said, let's go on. So again, overview of the talk, a very quick introduction to who I am. Planning a Fulbright, it takes some time, but it's really worth it to do. It's a highly prestigious award, meaning UF likes them, they want them, and I'm happy to help UF get them. So therefore, everybody's in alignment. So therefore, I think there's a great process that University of Florida set up to make sure that you can go on a Fulbright if you get a Fulbright. So again, all these things are now well ready for you to have a really rewarding experience. I'll talk about the application process. They've talked about changing it every few years. They say, we're going to do something different, but they haven't yet. It's still the same process. When I gave this talk last year, they were really in the process of redoing it, and then it stayed exactly the same as it ever was. So I'm going to pretend like it's all fine, like it is as it always was, and we'll continue from there. Tips for increasing your probability of success. I'm not going to talk about countries or stuff. It's about your Fulbright application, whether it's to Malaysia or Rwanda or any place else. It's just the rules that help you increase your probability, though you're welcome to talk to us and other people about the countries and what you could do and how it could work. Typical strategies for failure. We know you're not strategizing to fail, but people do fail nonetheless. And then to sum it all up. And again, everything's my own opinion. And so therefore, I don't represent anybody who has any real authority, just me. But, there I am again. I'm a professor and chair. I got a Fulbright Award as a student to South Africa in 1992. It was a total career changer for me. I loved it. I did my PhD work there. And then I got a Fulbright Award in 2012 as a professor. So I went back and I did a different thing, but I was in South Africa. So again, before I became chair, I was looking to do another Fulbright. So again, it's an award you can get multiple times. Sometimes they have limits of what you can have. Usually they make you wait out a couple of years and then you can apply again, because they do want people to have new Fulbrights, but they also want repeat people as well. I did serve on the Fulbright Scholar Selection Board for South Africa for 3 years up in DC when they still flew you up there, pre-Zoom days. And we would read about 70 or so applications, or 40 to 50, depending. And we'd read them from academics and professionals. I did never read the student ones, but I do like working with the students as well, because again, I did serve on the the discipline review board for another 3 years, where I was the water resource guy. So therefore, I didn't just go to South, like the one I was on was South Africa only, but then when I did disciplinary research, I read every single Fulbright that had to do with water and gave it my thumbs up or thumbs down. That was it. So just to kind of give a disciplinary view. So I've kind of seen it from lots of angles. I've aided a lot of students and professors over the years in a variety of countries. So doesn't matter where your country is going, and that's, yeah, I think that's a pretty good office phone that'll get us to the department anyway. So that one works, 1864. So again, so let's take a look now at what types of Fulbright awards there are. There's lots of them. So first of all, professors, go to the CIES.org. I checked it, so it should be good. Site that talks about all the different types of Fulbrights, because administrators like Dean Wasaki can get one too. So there's ones for everybody, different types. So please go look at them, because they keep Fulbright's always modifying awards and doing different things to help you, different permutations to help you get what you want, especially as it serves your research program or your teaching program. Students, there's another one right there that you go to that's a little more student oriented. But the core awards, the ones that I'm talking about mostly today, are from 3 to 11 months, and you're fully resident there. They want you there, living in the country, doing the thing you're saying you're doing, research or teaching or both, but they want you there. And you will decide how long you're there for. You will apply that in. So anywhere from 3 to 11. After 11, you can stay longer, but they're not paying for it. So you can make the case for, however you want to do that. Flex awards, so the core Fulbright awards are those. Flex awards, where people were saying, yeah, but I want to have a campaign where I come back every summer and do research in the Serengeti, let's say. Okay, great. Then the Flex Award is, instead of giving it to you for 1 year, where you do 3 to 11 months, they take that award and they slice it into pieces. So you can go 1 to 3 months each year for 2 to 3 years. So that allows you to, that's them being responsive to different types of professors or professionals. So that fits for you. They get assessed in the same pool as the core awards. So when I was reading them for South Africa, I was reading Flex awards and core awards. There are some that are regional, that have more than one country, can go over a year. Those are special cases. And again, just look at the rules. They generally apply this similarly. And so that one's a little more specialized. So if there's a bunch of countries that sometimes don't get a Fulbright, they may regionalize it a bit, but that's kind of a special vehicle. That's not normal. Usually they're towards a country. The specialist awards, what I was just talking to Claire about before we began, is a great for shorter term collaborations. This is a Fulbright Specialist Award site, and I looked that up, and it sets up a 1 to 3 month special deal where you'll go work with an entity. They pay for all your kind of travel and upkeep, but it's quicker. And it often, yes, you can use a Fulbright specialist to set up a Fulbright award. So you can do that. And I remember reading applications where a person had already been over there on a specialist award for 2 months, and then they set up their larger research a year or two later. So do check the rules. Sometimes when you're in a specialist award, they have the different rules of how often you can change, like be a specialist versus a core award. So check the rules, because they do change them to try to open it up to more people. All Fulbrights have varying teaching and research mixes, and sometimes subject matter requests. So when you look at Fulbrights, look at the country. Sometimes they say, hey, we'll take everything, just pitch us. Other times they're like, no, for this year, we want specifically in clean energy technologies. And so for a specific country, the country set up what they want. So the subjects in Malaysia may be quite different than the subjects in South Africa. So again, look at multiple sites to see. And of course, the Fulbright site has lots of ways of filtering, so you can look at your fields, but you can also look at countries. So again, take your time to really look things over and do your homework in advance, meaning have an idea of where you want to go. The first thing I ever ask when people say, hey, I want some help with a Fulbright, is I say, where you want to go? And if they say no, I don't know yet, then we tell them, go find some countries, find me 2 or 3, and then we'll talk more about that. Because each country is its own specific thing. You usually apply to only one Fulbright award in one country. So Get that sorted out. If you already know, then great. We're good to go. But that's usually what we do. So if you're thinking of 3 or 4 countries, so if you're applying to South Africa, yes, you can visit Zimbabwe, but you're not going to probably have a Fulbright to both, right? You'll probably do one, you'll be in one country and then you can move around as you need. Basic success in a Fulbright application. So let's be proactive, at least a little bit. An absolute minimum that I've seen for somebody to chuck together a Fulbright application that works is about six to 8 weeks. Optimal, it's 6 to 12 months. You should start talking and thinking and planning with you, your significant others, your family, your pets. Everybody else should be understanding what, the idea of this, so you can start planning for that, because it's a big change of scenery that you're going to undertake. And I think that being proactive really helps. I've had plenty of people come and say, well, I'm going to think of it. And then they say, yeah, I'm going to try next year. And then they wait and apply another year. And then they finally get it, right? So think, even if it's years early, start talking and thinking about it, about what you're doing. It's a great way to break the ice with different groups in different countries so that you can get a relationship with them and get them thinking about what you guys would work on. Planning, do your homework on the country and its institutions. The first thing whenever I was reading for South Africa was, do these people know about South Africa? And sometimes they didn't. They knew almost nothing about South Africa. That does not bode well in an application, because you should be understanding of how the different institutions work. And again, UF is such a big international place. I don't think there's a country on earth, maybe except for the few closed ones, that don't have UF professors who have been working on them. So we will almost always find you specialists in Moldova, which I don't know Moldova, but I'm sure we can find some people who would have expertise on the institutions and country of Moldova to help you put your Fulbright award together. Again, that's what Claire and the Fulbright Committee is there for, and we do that all the time. So do your homework on the country. What's its history? What are where are they going as a government, as a country? What are their specific objectives to build? And again, when execution of the Fulbright proposal, have lots of people read your proposal. I will read it, but a lot of other people read it too. You need to get people to read it so that it is clear and understandable and has a good story in it. Because if it's just you should never clip out your NSF proposal or your NIH proposal or your USDA proposal and paste it into a Fulbright. That will guarantee you a low rating, because it's not the same thing. It is a very different, you have a personal statement, but you also have a professional statement. But remember, you're not being read by other agricultural or engineering or medical professionals. You are person might be a professor of arts or a professor of drama reading an engineering proposal. So it must be approachable. I'm an engineer. I read proposals on opera, on photography, or some of the psychology, of course, racism, because South Africa had plenty of that back in the day. So all these different political science, I had so many of those. So again, you got to write your proposal so that it's interesting to everyone, not just people in your field. Luck. You got to have some luck. So if you don't make it one year, try again, because they throw them out. It's a brand new committee usually reading them. And often in South Africa, since I was on a 3-year tour of duty as the Southern, I remember saying, oh, hey, I remember this one. This one, it didn't win last year. And the guys say, no, it didn't win. I'm like, well, we think it's great. And we send it on, and they got it. Because we almost always get told near the end of who got them. And I was pleased to see that people who had applied, who had done well but hadn't made it another year after that. So keep applying. Every year they just chuck them all away. They'll sometimes tell you what the committee liked, but you don't get a breakdown of NSF reviewers. They will not tell you everything about it. But sometimes if you call up the CIES people, they'll give you kind of a vibe of how, your committee thought that your timeline was unrealistic, or you didn't show enough knowledge of the country conditions to make that work. They'll try to give you some type of help to make it better each time. So luck is part of the deal, but again, there's ways of becoming lucky. Okay, the basic Fulbright process. You have to kind of follow along. So here we go. It takes a while. It takes almost a year plus to get a Fulbright, much less start it. So here we go. Let's say you are building your application in January of year X. So you've already been working on it for 2 to 3 months in year 2026. The application, the deadline for this year is July or August of 2026, X. The first cut where I used to read them was in October. I used to go to DC and read them in year 2026. So you're still 2026. The final cut in selection, you go through Christmas or the holiday season, and then year X plus 1, you finally get your final selections by the countries in February, March. Usually selection letters go out in April to June of year X plus 1. So if you want to apply this year, you're only going to hear June, July 2027. Okay? So it takes a while, relax. And so then for you to leave, when do I go? You can go late summer or fall of 2027. This year's Fulbright starts in 2027 in the summer, fall, or even if you really want to go to 2028, they'll let you probably do that if you get back in time. So that's how far advanced this thing is to make it happen. Start at least 3 months ahead or years, as I did. I thought for many years how many times I was going to do it before I finally did it. Basic application, it's usually about 5 pages. Watch the guidance. It changes a little bit every year. It's not a long proposal. The letters of recommendation are very important. So get them to people who will give you a good review. They are read by the committee. I actually had a Fulbright to South Africa that we read that the letter said, don't give it to this person. And I was like, whoa, this person. So obviously there were some issues going along that, make sure the people who are going to give you the letter believe in your Fulbright. So that's really important. They do read them. A letter of invitation from each country is, well, it's required now. You must have that letter saying, we are the University of KwaZulu-Natal, and we are totally okay with this. We love this idea or this process. We will give them a desk. Yes, they'll teach the course. Everything's set up. Please give us the money. You need one of those. They have to be usually put with your application. So that's a requirement to make sure that they know you're coming and that you've worked it out with the institution. The first cut in October, like I talked about, that's from DC or now from Zoom, really. And the second cut is in the countries. Now, inside who selects the second cut? Well, sometimes the country has its own committee. South Africa sometimes has a Fulbright committee, other times it doesn't. Usually it's embassy staff. So sometimes they know a lot, sometimes they know a little. And so definitely watch and see for announcements and such like that. So again, the second cut, when you finally get it, they do go for a diversity of different fields. They do go for, and they also go for a different set of places in the country. So if you're, like we used to tell people, if for South Africa, whatever you do, don't go to Cape Town. Visit Cape Town, have a fun there. But if you try to locate there, you are now putting yourself in with 80% of all Fulbright applications are sitting in Cape Town. So if they're trying to get Fulbrights to other parts of South Africa besides Cape Town, you're already having to break yourself out of a big pack of people. So we almost always, one of the secrets of South Africa is don't be in Cape Town because everybody and their brother's there. So go ahead and try to find some other places that would be useful. And they do want to spread them around the country. They want them in different fields and they want them in different. So oftentimes a biodiversity proposal to South Africa might do better than a political science proposal to South Africa because there'd be 30 different political scientists putting in on race relations in different parts of the government process versus the 2 or 3 applications in biodiversity. So, so they do try for a spread of different ones. They're not just all trying to put them in one area. And usually they know how many awards are given. The CIS people usually say, oh, there's 20 awards given. And you usually know how many applications there are too. So there were like 70 applications and they gave out 20 awards or something like that. So, all right, let's keep moving. So the first steps, find a country. You can only apply to one each year, so get a country in mind. It helps. That's why they go to the Fulbright site, find out what the what the priorities are operative for each country. Sometimes they're just, we'll take anybody. Other times they want teacher, like we want you to pick up teaching. So look for each one and get a few countries and look them over. Get to know the academic and NGO institutions within that country and ask your friends. I'm all about South Africa. I worked there a fair amount, so I know a lot about it. I know people, so I can help you out. Other countries, not so much. Get to know the IIE coordinators. They have and find out details. They're very nice and supportive. They want you to have a good application. They can't tell you what's going to win, but they sometimes have good advice for you. So please reach out to them. They're quite ready to help you to get your proposal together in a way you like. Get to know the odds for your country. How many applicants? What's the success rate? Where do most people work in the country? Like I just said. European Fulbrights are very hard to get because everybody applies for European Fulbrights. So England, France, Spain, Germany, there's a lot of Fulbrighters trying to go there in lots of different areas. So you may want to try for other countries if you have that idea. So again, you can usually get those numbers from the Fulbright groups. So who's on the first cut boards? People like me, four successful Fulbrighters from previous years on a 3-year rotation. Like I said, all different academic fields. I remember I had an architecture professor, and I had me, which is biological engineering, and there was, an English professor, planning. There was a planning person once. So again, all different types of academic fields, individual reviews and ratings online. The idea that you can basically, I'm trying to remember what I do with that. Oh, we do a lot of that online. So they put it online, with that stuff. The one day, we have 1 day to go through 40 to 50 applications. So we're going through fast. The group rating that they give in that first cut board there's only 3 ratings: highly recommended, recommended, or not recommended. Not recommended means they die right there. Usually we did on average, about 25% of the applications were not recommended. The rest of them either got recommended or highly recommended. You want to be in the highly recommended categories because sometimes when they go to some of the embassies, they just throw out the recommendeds and only go after the highly recommended. So we want to get you in that box of the highly recommended ones that are well put together, have a really compelling idea, and then you've got your best shot at the second cut board. The group rating that we give is always a consensus decision. That is, we talk about it and we come to one rating as a group. So it is fair. I mean, it is kind of, it is not. So if you have a holdout, they say, why do you love this proposal so much? Or vice versa. Why don't you like this proposal? And the group that reviews for each country gets to see the disciplinary review. So remember when I told you I did all the water resources ones? They can look up what the disciplinary specialist said about it. So they said, what's the water person say? Oh yeah, we think it's great. Okay, then let's go back to whether we think it's highly recommended. So it's kind of just another piece of information. But remember, lots of different people reading your proposal. Who are on the second cut boards? This is much more up in the air. Some countries have internal boards filled with their own people. Other countries have embassy stats. And so sometimes they know a lot, sometimes they don't know a lot. But again, we are told that the ratings for the first ones count a lot. That means we want to get you in the highly recommended. So the Fulbright Committee, the University of Florida's job is to try to get you into the highly recommended pot. That's the best we can do. The rest is fate. So these groups, again, they try for diversity across institutions, right? They're trying for a bunch of different fields. So they don't want just political science or engineers. They want to get a spread of everybody. They're looking across the whole country. They want to put these Fulbrights all over institutions too. So they're not just thinking, okay, we just want to put a bunch of engineers into this one city. It doesn't work like that. So again, my views on the process, it's really fair. Boy, it doesn't have any back dealing. If it does, it's not the level I saw. Every single application, it is about the application and not what school. I sometimes thought, great, there were Princeton proposals coming and they were awesome. And other times I saw ones that were not so awesome. And we graded them accordingly. Huge variety from opera to race relations to astronomy to photography to graph theory to engineering. I remember I wrote that one after my South African stint. Be upbeat and optimistic and memorable. Try to make your proposal memorable. Get lots of people to read it, your colleagues, your significant other, called in favors, do it. So Let me see, did I just go backwards? No, pick a country, pick a region, pick a university or an NGO or all of them, right? Do your homework. You got to know its country, its geography and everything. Talk to your colleagues. This is where Florida is really a big help to you. Don't go always with the most popular places. You heard my Cape Town rant. How are you going to reach the most people? This is a big question. I always had the legacy question. Whenever I read a proposal, I always wanted to know what would be left behind after you leave. And to me, that's big. So what are you building there that hopefully will keep going after you leave? Talk to the coordinators. They do want high quality applications. So here's how to fail. I always like the failure ones or potentially make pretend. Well, I'm awesome. And obviously you should see that too. Some big badass professor who's famous in their field comes walking in with lots of attitude about how awesome they are. The board will chew that up because they're going to be like, well, I don't understand. I don't know who this person is. And obviously they think they're awesome, but they didn't always get through. So do be a little bit humble and try to highlight the fact that what you can help with. I've had people, methodology. I'm just going to go over there and see what happens. No way. Nope. We killed those quick because they were just chaotic. I'm going to go over there and just let the place hit me. No, you go over there with a plan. It doesn't have to be a crazy plan, but it has to have a plan. You must have a research or teaching methodology so that people don't just go, you won't just go over there and waste your time. This is a fun one. This country's a basket case. Only I can save it, right? That kind of, I'm the savior. Once I go there, everything will be sorted out. I doubt it. But the idea is I can have problems and challenges and you can help to contribute to that. But I doubt you're there to show them the right way. Exactly. So let's not get that going too much. Again, there's plenty of, you go to some of these countries and they do have significant challenges. They know what the challenges are. They want your help to do so. That's different than you said. This project will be wonderful for my career. And they talk nothing but how this thing's going to be awesome for themselves. We need this all going to my book. My book will be awesome. My book is this. And let me tell you more about my book. And we'd be like, and what are you going to leave behind? Oh, I'll leave a book copy of the book behind. No, that doesn't tend to work. So please help think about the legacy thing too, not just your career. This is another one we saw a lot of. I'm totally clueless about this country and the application, but my passion will make up for it. No, it won't. It will not. Trust me. There are people who will make sure you must be organized, you must be systematic, and you must be clear. Else, chaos just begats chaos. And then this epistemological nexoid abstract topology is both obtuse and existential enough. We don't know what the heck this is about. Don't use the jargon of your field. Okay? Every field has jargon. Don't use it. It doesn't make you sound smarter. It actually, because remember, there's almost 100% chance that nobody from your field will read this proposal. You get some engineer from me, or some arts professor, all the way to, you never know who's going to read it. So please be understandable, be relatable, and help it to be seen as help. What if you fail? Try again. Each year is a totally different mix of applicants. There's always some application that end up being funded after a first acceptable attempt. Again, you can talk to the staff about if they can offer any pointers. They can't be too detailed, but they'll help do it each thing. Again, so remember, you want to go ahead and try to get that through. And if you fail, try again. I mean, it doesn't hurt to try. It's a free proposal. It's only 5 pages. So we go from there. That's a picture of my Fulbright. Yeah, he's now learning to fly. He's an 18-year-old now. So they do grow up. So yeah, he's actually a pilot too. Anyway, happy to answer questions from there. And yeah, I'll leave it there.
If anybody has any questions, just unmute and ask.
I'm also happy to answer individual questions you may have. People do email me and say, hey, I saw your thing. How do you, what about this? What about this? And yeah, I'm happy to talk stuff out. Yes, I do read proposals. Try to get them to me before like 1 or 2 days before they're due. Just out of, but yeah, a lot of people are reading them. I think a lot of people in the Fulbright committee can be given to try to read them. So, okay, great.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Would you go typically for topics that are very specific, more core, or more outside the field? I mean, what kind of topics? It depends on the country, of course, I believe that. But for example, if you have to pick a topic with respect to what you want to do, does it have to be something exciting to you or more social oriented or even engineering? If I say I will do traditional mechanics, for example, nobody cares. What kind of subjects would you think are more favorable?
That I don't think there's any one secret way to do it. Sometimes they just want basic stuff, like basic mechanics might be exactly what they want. Like if you're teaching and you're teaching a mechanics class and you're doing research, then that may be perfect for them. Remember, some people do Fulbrights to teach. They'll come there, they'll pick up a mechanics class, and they'll start teaching. So, they're either teaching, research, or combination. And best to talk. Well, you usually should talk through the institution you want to go with. So let's say it's a university just getting started or just laying out an engineering program. Then you should go ahead and maybe that's exactly what they want. They want to build a base level mechanical engineering or robotics area, and they want the most basic of courses. Then if you find that interesting, then go for it. I think it's more, there's no hip topic like AI or something like that. No, I think that they listen to all of it. But you have to make it understandable and relatable. Like, why it's better if you like the topic. Don't think, well, I'll teach this, but I'll hate it. Don't do that. You won't make a good proposal. You've got to love it. You've got to be something. This is a big chunk of your time to do. Make it worth your while, right? Make it, and that'll come through in the proposal anyway. I must always think, why is this important to somebody? When Jasmeet Judge got her one to India, she was doing microwave remote sensing with water. And I would read it and go, I'm bored, and she would change it until we finally boiled it into, it was really relevant. And she got it. She won a Fulbright Kalam Award because we kept boiling it down, not be technical, but to be interesting. And by the time she finished it, it was gorgeous. I knew it would be very competitive because it was just, she read it and we were like, whoa, it was so interesting. But it took about 5 iterations. So I see another question. Yeah, Hannah.
Hi there. Thank you. I am curious about trying to pair a Fulbright with a sabbatical, and if you have any recommendations for that, given that UF has kind of gone to basically 1 semester sabbaticals, and I'm trying to make a year type.
Work it through. It depends on what college you're in. Some college, the reason why UF set up a nice, clear Fulbright policy, because some colleges like IFAS, I'll just crow about IFAS, they were like, go, have fun, do what they were all like, and other ones were like, you're leaving? No, we must, no, and so what UF tried to make one policy that works pretty well. So I would just start talking with different people about what's the limit, what can you do, because they do have kind of leave of absence, because Jasmeet Judge, when she got her Fulbright, had just completed a sabbatical, but then she got the leave of absence because she was able to do that too. So she was able to do both. And I think that was very lovable on the part of UF to be able to twist that way. Because again, it was a prestigious Fulbright. It was really hard to get. So like 1 of 2, they only gave out 2. So talk to your higher ups to figure out what that is. And Claire can help with that too. I think that's where Claire and the Fulbright committee really can help.
I guess in a follow-up, is that something that could be highlighted in the application, that you're kind of leveraging, some time in the country from another source of support, or
I don't know. I'd have to think about that. That's where we'd want to get a couple of Fulbrighters together and go, okay, the Fulbright will pay the whole time up to 11 months, right? So they don't care if you're coming there because of a sabbatical, they're still going to pay. So if you're like, I went for 11 months to South Africa. And so I just took 50% pay and then used the Fulbright to make up the rest, right? They gave us money to live on. They also gave us money for school kids' fee. We homeschooled it, so it was a little easier, but they still said, okay, here's money for books and everything. So they do build it around your situation. So if you've got children, they're going to put in more money for the kids. Okay. If you have any, now they didn't, I had 4 boys. So they're like, yeah, we're paying for 2, right? They said 1 spouse, 2 kids, we're out because you got too many. I was like, fair enough. Then I paid for the 2 and we went. So they will tell you, okay, here's the award. Here's what we're paying for. Sign it, don't sign it. If you don't sign it, they go on to the next person, and then they craft a new one for the next person, because each Fulbright award is kind of a handmade car towards your needs. So
Okay.
that's why. So it's pretty fair. I mean, some people get more an award than another because they might have kids or something and they have to go to school. So therefore, suddenly they get school fees. Where if you're going with no dependent children, then you don't need those school fees.
Got it.
All right. Sounds pretty quiet. Over to you.
Other questions, Kumaran? The floor is yours.
Okay, let me drag my PowerPoint. Can you all see my PowerPoint?
Yeah.
All right, good afternoon, folks. My name is Muthusami Kumaran, Associate Professor of Nonprofit Management. I teach how to manage nonprofits or NGOs in the Department of Family, Youth, and Community Sciences here in CALS. Greg highlighted very important tips on going after Fulbright applications. He's always enthusiastic and energetic. As you can see, his energy and enthusiasm are pretty contagious. He mentioned about the different awards available through Fulbright. I'm going to highlight Fulbright Scholar Awards. It's my understanding most of you are planning or already in taking steps in going after Fulbright Scholar applications, which used to be called Fulbright core applications, right? This is a key part of Fulbright applications. I had the absolute honor of Fulbright Scholar Award in 2019 to 2020. This is pre-COVID era in Jeju National University in South Korea. So this is the game plan. I'd like to start with, there are a couple of points that I'll be repeating. I'll be, from what Greg mentioned, I'll try to skip some of them without repeating, but I'll try to, this is the second or third time we are doing this. So we are going in tandem on this presentation. I'd like to start with why you all should apply for a Fulbright Scholar Award. Some key points from my personal experience as well. And some of the important considerations that you need to have in mind before you start thinking about going after Fulbright. Some of the key questions, some deep questions for which you need to find answers before you start planning for your Fulbright award application. And choosing the right award. Greg highlighted that in terms of the country, in terms of the subject, in terms of whether it's going to be teaching, research, or teaching and research. I'll highlight some of them, and how to package your application. Once again, Greg highlighted some key point. I'll try to avoid some of them he mentioned. I'll highlight some other items. And then I will actually pull the 2027-28 Fulbright catalog. This is an award that if you're planning to go after the next cycle, this is the award you're going after. I'll actually pull the Fulbright catalog, their website, so we'll see how it is given. It's a very intuitive website. You just can't go wrong. Everything is given to you. So we'll pull that and see how that is in terms of the details, right? And then reviewer guidelines. Like Greg, I currently serve as a peer review committee member. It's a 3 years commitment. I completed 2 years, and this is a third year on the social sciences, right? So I am part of a 3 members committee. This year was 3 members committee that went through about 30 plus applications. So we are given specific guidelines as reviewers, right? So from the reviewer's point of view, I'll give some tips on what we are looking for. A little bit about my Fulbright application. I will actually show my Fulbright application, and I've sent it to dozens of folks. If you are interested, just send me an email. I'll be glad to send you my successful Fulbright application. For a good measure, I'll show it in the screen as well. A little bit about, if you have time, my Fulbright experience overall. And Fulbright is sky's the limit. Fulbright is not just the award, the 6 to 11 month period you are spending abroad doing teaching research or teaching research. It can take its own life, if you will. So I highlight how my Fulbright went in different tangents, even well after the actual 6 months I spent in South Korea. and how it impacted my professional outlook and personal impacts in terms of global networking and so on and so forth. So let's start with why should you all go after Fulbright Award? First of all, this Fulbright gives an amazing platform for you to internationalize your academic excellence, right? So all of you are, at the University of Florida, we are all on top of our games, if you will. Fulbright gives you an opportunity to take your expertise on an international scale in collaboration with the local universities and knowledge exchange and so on, so forth. It gives an amazing opportunity for you to network and collaborate with your peers in the host country and host university. And like I said, this is just the beginning. It gives you the mold, the enthusiasm to go after such collaboration across the globe, if you will. It goes great. It looks great on your resume. It goes great on your tenure and promotion, and now the PTR package, and also your annual package, right? So Fulbright is a very prestigious award, so it speaks volume. And you get a chance to live in another country, whether it's 6 months or 11 months. You get to live in a country for knowledge exchange, for cultural immersion for yourself. And if you plan to take your family, it's an opportunity for your family to immerse in a different culture, and all paid for by Uncle Sam. So you are covered by everything is covered by the Department of State. You can be the conduit for UF to achieve higher ranking. So it gives a bragging right for UF in terms of number of Fulbrighters abroad and so on, so forth. And you get to attend. You become a full part of a close-knit community here at UF. Your Fulbrighters, and you get to attend the annual Fulbright reception. I don't know whether it still exists or not. By the way, we also had a Fulbright committee ever since I came back. I've been part of the Fulbright committee. We paused it for a short period, but we are reinitiating again. So you get to be a part of this close-knit group of Fulbrighters here. And once a Fulbrighter, always a Fulbrighter, right? So I have a dear friend, Ray Bromley. He was one of my recommenders. He used to say, this guy went for 3 Fulbrights, not 1, 2, 3 Fulbrights. He retired as a provost from SUNY system. He used to say, Kumaran, once you're a Fulbrighter, you die as a Fulbrighter. Right? So I'm going to give a positive spin. Once a Fulbrighter, you are always a Fulbrighter. It's with you all the time. You can do it, folks. If I can do it, you can do it. So go for it. So I'd like to start with this. These are the deep questions for which you need to have answers. You need to find answers before you embark on the process. It's going to be an intense process of putting together the pieces of your application. The first question is, how can a Fulbright Award benefit me professionally, right? And how can I contribute to the profession through my Fulbright Award, right? So think about your profession, engineering, whatever your field you are in, and within that your specialization. How can a Fulbright Award benefit you professionally, and how you can contribute to your profession through the internationalization of your expertise through Fulbright? Second, how can a Fulbright Award benefit me personally, right? This is in terms of global knowledge, multicultural understanding, cultural immersion, and so on, so forth. And what can you contribute personally through your host institution in your country, in your host country? Next one is, how can a Fulbright benefit my family? If you choose to take your family, how can it benefit my family in terms of, once again, the global knowledge, cultural understanding, and so on, so forth. Next, how can a Fulbright Award benefit my home department, my college, UF in general? So these are the questions you need to ask and have a clear understanding on, clear answers to all these things before you start doing the process. And what kind of network do you have currently with universities abroad, right? People who you met with in international conferences, the connections that you have, because you're going to leverage all of them in connecting with the host institution, definitely getting recommendation letters, and eventually weaving your Fulbright application all together. And what support do you have in your home department, your college, and UF? The good news is UF has excellent policies and all these things. There was a question about whether I can combine my sabbatical with that. You have to find answers to that in your home department, because you need support at all these levels before you actually start putting together your application. Other consideration going back to the last point I made, internal support, your department, talking to your head of the department, right? Getting their blessings and answering questions, finding answer for questions like, can I combine sabbatical? Or if I'm taking 6 months, how that's going to play out, right? So all those things, the good news is UF has excellent support. We have UF International Center. Claire Anumba is a glue. She's an excellent contact person to connect you with the other resources and so on, so forth. Like I said, we also have a UF Fulbright committee with a mission to promote Fulbright awareness and opportunities and so on, so forth. And the contact person, Greg mentioned that once you decide on a country, you know who the contact person at Fulbright is. So write to them, ask for any clarifications you may have, any doubts, and so on, so forth. They are willing to help. It is in their best interest to get good applications, if you will. Websites. So I'm going to pull the actual Fulbright catalog from their website, but it's also important sometimes if you are going after Fulbright, that involves Fulbright Commission. So Greg mentioned the difference. Fulbrights are for ultimate decision comes from the country, home country, and the country, host country, and you need to find out whether the host country has Fulbright Commission or it is handled by the embassy staff. So if the country has a Fulbright Commission, they have their own website and they also have priorities. These are the key priorities for this particular Fulbright cycle and so on, so forth. Attend webinars like this, and Fulbright puts up several webinars, and Claire can give you all the information. By the way, Claire also sends from time to time webinars available internally, but also from IAE, the Fulbright shop as well. Invitation letter. This is where your connection comes through. You begin to network, you leverage your network internationally and try to connect with the institution, your host institution, in terms of getting the invitation, because that's going to play a very important role in making the decision. And letter of recommendations, right? Ideally, one should come from a Fulbrighter, so she or he can talk effectively about your potential to become a Fulbrighter. So all these things you need to line up, and then choosing the right award. There was a couple of questions on the country, right? You need to choose the right country. Greg also mentioned there are some countries where there are high number of applications, like mostly European countries. And at the same time, there are several countries, very few applications. So it is in your own interest to do good research, go to the website and how many awards are available in each country. And once again, boiling down to your subject area and so on, so forth. And then your host institution, that's going to play an important role in the final decision as well. I mentioned your individual connections, your host institutions, and your specific. I mean, if the good news is they clearly tell you what kind of specialization they're expecting, right? So in some areas they just leave it very open. Social sciences, that is very broad, right? But every award, every country has very, very clear specification. For example, STEM. They clearly tell you this is a specialization that we are looking for this specific award. So you need to read them very carefully and package them accordingly, right? And how relevant your application is for the project they are proposing. So you can you can apply for a teaching assignment, a research assignment, or a combination of both, teaching and research. So how relevant your specialization, the time frame, and so on, so forth, and how it is going to be useful to the host institution, host country, and so on, so forth. And then how your participation in Fulbright is going to enrich your professional field. Language proficiency, they clearly tell you if there is a requirement for language proficiency. If so, if you are good in that, there is a requirement, you need to complete that. We look at that when you go through the catalog. And how much money, right? So each country, based on the living expenses, differs in terms of Fulbright awards. And there are also other allowances, right? Are you planning to take your family? Like Greg mentioned, 1 or 2 children and the spouse is covered. So that's the decision you need to make. Let's look at the catalog. This is a current catalog. Let me drag it up here. I hope all of you are able to see it. So as I mentioned, this is very, very intuitive. It clearly tells you all those things. As you can see on the left side, it starts with the overview and getting started, right? It tells you, everything is given for you. All you have to do is just go one at a time, carefully review them and see. Remember that the question, the several questions that I mentioned earlier, how this is going to play out for all those questions. Timeline is clearly given. This is for the current year, right? So the competition is open now. So 2027, 2028. If you begin to put together a packet now, you're going after a 2027, 28 award. So February, that's when just 2 months ago, it became open. And September, all this information clearly given, peer review, when does that happen, and the notification, selection, and Greg highlighted that as well. And then types and activities. As I mentioned, you can do teaching, research, teaching and research, or professional project. This is what we call the special projects. All information is given. You need to read them carefully. One question that in the past people asked is it advisable to go after only teaching, only research, or a combination of both? It depends. It entirely depends, right? So based on your specialization, based on the need of the host institutions, and on so on and so on and so forth. Eligibility, once again, clearly given. Application steps, all these things, review process, right? So currently I'm serving my 3rd year as a reviewer. It's renewable one more time. So this is what they're looking at: training, background, and experience. So you need to hit all those points. Quality of the project, whether you're teaching, they specify for teaching, these are the qualifications we're looking for research, for combo and professional projects, and so on, so on, so on, so forth. And a potential impact. So these are the questions, these are the criteria that we look at each application, right? Each application, we look at it very carefully. A committee of 3 in this case, and last year I had 4, this year 3. Each of us look at each of these 4 categories and come up with those decisions, right? Highly recommended, recommended, not recommended for each of these. And then we sit together one full day, well choreographed review process, and we have to make a case for each of these categories. And finally, it's a completely consensus-based decision-making process. In my opinion, this is probably the best ever review process I've ever been part of, right? Well choreographed. There is a person from Fulbright shop monitoring and running the whole process, and there is one person observing from IAE, and so on, so on, so on, and so forth. So cultural preparedness, we look at all those things as we go along, and let's look at the opportunities available now, right? So Scholar Award. So once again, very intuitive. You can search by region, country, and discipline, award type, activity type, on and on and on. So to make things easier, let me start with South Korea. That's my favorite destination, and click search. So by the way, if you go back, there were 385 awards available right now, right? So close to 400 awards are available in probably about 130 countries or so. So these are the awards available in South Korea. As you can see, one is International Education Administrator Award. This is what Greg was telling about. This is meant for administrators, right? Like Professor Waisaki, who wants to go connect with his peers in different parts of the world. So that is specific for them. That activity is a seminar type. It's a very short term. I know some of UFIC has sent some folks for that this particular award. And the second, as I mentioned, very specific to STEM. Okay, this is a professional project. It could be research, it could be training and research, and so on and so forth. And the next one is Distinguished Scholar in Yonsei University. Yonsei is one of the blockbuster universities in South Korea, if you will. That is specific to that university. And then this is broad: social science, arts and humanities. It could be professional project, it could be research, teaching and research. Let's click on that. And right off the bat, it tells you there are approximately 8 awards available. So you are competing, if you're going after one of these, you're competing for one of these 8 awards, right? And it gives you all the information, activity type, months, 3 months to 10 months. That's the time frame, right? Award start period in June. discipline, it depends, right? So it could be any discipline. They give you all these career profiles and so on and so forth. If you go into the detail, this is where this is specific to South Korea, right? In social sciences. So award activity, teaching, research, a combination of all those things. Location, it depends on the connections you make. Ideally, go after national universities or some private universities as well. All these things are at play. Locations, award length, and so on and so forth. It is a flex award. You can have a combination. If you go after a flex award, these are all the items that you need to look for, right? Award requirements. Everything is given. So very intuitive, and award benefits. So this exactly, they tell you how much a recipient is paid, right? So monthly stipend is about $3,500. You're not going to make rich out of it, but it is comfortably sufficient to pay. Actually, when I went, it was slightly more than that. I don't know if it went down, but it gives you all those details, right? All the benefits. This is dependent award allowance. So if you're planning to take a dependent, $5,000 per child per semester, all the given estimated cost of living in South Korea. So, like I said, it is very intuitive. All you have to do is carefully read it, review it before you make the decision to actually put together the pieces. Now let's continue on the application packet. So I think Greg also highlighted, this is like grant writing, right? So it's a very intense competitive process. You need to be very thorough, very clear on how you're putting together the pieces. Read the catalog again and again, right? So take notes, right? This is when you're converting your ideas, the answers to the questions I mentioned, into actually application packets, right? We have a huge advantage at UF. I give an example of UF. I mean, you have to highlight that, right? So you are representing University of Florida. So we consistently receive several awards, Fulbright awards, both students as well as faculty. But that in itself is not going to play out. But you need to highlight that and write a very compelling and sharp project statement. And that's the make or break. As a reviewer, we read this very carefully, right? So sharp, just compelling, right? Your statement should have a positive attitude, the can-do attitude, if you will, and strong invitation letter from your host institution. This is absolutely important, right? Because they're going to host you, although it's going to be paid for by Fulbright program. They need to know what kind of support you get when you arrive at the host institution, and strong recommendation letters, right? Greg mentioned about the horror story of somebody said, don't give this person an award, right? So you need to connect with the right people, ideally one Fulbrighter, because they can talk about, how you will play, your Fulbright will be contributing both the host institution and your professionalization as well. And reach out to a Fulbright committee and the individual. We are here to help you. It's like, getting a Fulbright was one of the pinnacles in my professional career. And we, as you saw how Greg was enthusiastic and so on and so forth. So reach out to us. We are here to help in any way we can. And if you get the award after all these things, good for you, you're a winner. But if you do not get the award, you are definitely not a loser. Again, do it again. It's very common. For me, the second time, I won the award the second time, right? The first time it went through the peer level, and then when it went to the commission at in South Korea, I was struck down. So the second time, be persistent and try again. And may the force be with you. So you need a lot of support and so on and so forth. So this is a current timeline for the next year award. So your deadline, your drop dead deadline to push the button is September 15th. September 15th, I think 5 p.m. EST. They clearly mentioned that in the website. So that's your deadline. So you need to do some reverse engineering and work backwards. I agree 100% with Greg. It's a 6 month process to formulate your idea and put together and sharpening them and make many people read them, and every word counts, right? The first cut is in October, November. This is when the peer review committee carefully looks through all the applications, right? And mine was, as Greg was engineering, mine was social sciences. It's very broad. I had many applications from anthropology. I don't have a clue about anything about anthropology, right? So the idea is you're not writing something highly technical. In fact, technical mumbo jumbo is not accepted in an application packet. Make it simplistic. Everybody can understand in conveying your message on how it is important to the host institution and yourself and so on and so forth. So there are 3 piles. Pile A, highly recommended. Pile B, recommended. Pile C, over my dead body. So you definitely don't want to go into the not recommended area. Ideally, you want to go into the first pile, A pile, highly recommended. Once again, all 3 of us, we argue sometimes, right? Because sometimes somebody's very rated of the 4 categories. Sometimes I know there are some cases, one person rated all the 4 categories not recommended. So 2 of us rated highly recommended. So we actually had to discuss for each category why and then finally the person changed the mind and so on and so forth. So the thing is, maybe because when they looked at it, it was a kind of a, different. So it's very consensus oriented. It's a very objective review process and so on and so forth. And then the notice from IAE, whether you made the first cut or not, comes in December. And then the second cut, this goes to the country or the embassy, depending on if your country has a commission or not. And then the third cut is the final decision is made by Fulbright Scholarship Board in Washington, D.C. at the Fulbright shop. And then you get notification anywhere between January and June. So this is how this is going to play out for this upcoming cycle. So these are the 4 categories I was talking about. So we are given 2 documents, each 28 pages in length. Obviously, I cannot share the document. It clearly tells the policies, right? There is a ethical class and so on and so forth. So we agree to abide by all those things. And then another document, specific instructions on how to go into the website, how to download each application, and how to rank them. So I always start with the Word document, read each of them, each application. I start with the country, and then I go through all these things, read all the stuff, and then rank them in these three categories, right? Highly recommended, recommended, or not recommended. So in addition to that, we are also asked to do our final judgment call, if you will. So there are 6 categories that we go through each of them, and the 6th is actually the combined final decision that we make as a group. So you need to be very careful. All these things are given already there. So look at them, review them carefully, and package them, and reach out to folks like people like me, Greg, and a whole bunch of other Fulbrighters who are willing to help you. And then you need to reach out to your colleagues within your field to make sure everything falls into play. This is one thing. One of the key goals by the way, this was also repeated during the review process as well. One of the major objectives to provide educational exchange opportunity for people who never had or previously not had opportunity in that specific country, right? I'll talk a little bit about that later on when it could go both ways. In other words, if you've been to a country multiple times, you establish solid contacts, it may work advantage to your application or sometimes disadvantages to application as well. So these are the excerpts from the 28-page document we are given. We are asked to go through all these things. Your professional excellence. You need to prove yourself as an expert and so on and so forth through all these things. Your publications, grants, fellowship. There is actually you have to upload your CV, a brief. There are page limits for everything. And honors. So these are what we are looking for: your honors, your awards, and conference presentations, and so on and so forth. For teaching and teaching and research awards, you are fit, right? I think earlier there was a question about what kind of a topic that you need to go after. It depends on your expertise, and depends on how it can contribute to your host institutions and so on, and so forth. For the research, we are asked to look at the intellectual merit, right? how this is going to contribute to the field, contribute to knowledge within the field, and so on, so on, so forth. So let me quickly blast through my experience, my professional background. By the way, my application was to teach a course on nonprofit management, NGO management, first time ever in that university, in the Department of Sociology. And the research was in the Department of Public Administration, right? So I did a research about the capacity and needs assessment of NGOs in South Korea. So I had to get 2 letters of support, one from the teaching side of the equation, that's Sociology, Department of Sociology, and one from Public Administration, where I did the research. So I looked at all those things and I decided to go after teaching and research. For a good measure, I also included service, meaning I actually trained nonprofit leaders while I was there. That's a bonus point, but it's not required. I always wanted to go after Fulbright, always. So like I said, that's one of my career pinnacles, if you will. And I was very familiar with the turf, right? South Korea, that was my Fulbright was actually 10th visit. I've been there multiple times. I was a little bit worried in the beginning whether that's going to play advantages to me or not. But the way I packaged my application was specifically how there is a strong need for this course, there is a strong need for this research. So that's how I managed to package it in. So as I mentioned, one of the goals is to provide opportunity for those who have not explored international exchange, or at least international exchange in the country that you are applying for. And internal support, I had tremendous support from a chair of the department. In fact, I agreed to teach a course, 2 courses online while I was abroad, right? And external support, this is from my host institution, right? My friends, letters of support, and so on, so on, so forth. So the first attempt, I didn't get it. I got through the peer review process. Interestingly, that's a major cut. Somehow that clicked, but when it went to the commission, they did not approve my award. The second year, I polished it a little bit. I took off some elements because I thought somebody mentioned that maybe you are proposing too much, right, for a 6 months time period. So I repackaged it and it clicked. So let me show you that my actual application package. This is how it looks like. Let me pull this out. So this is the actual, I downloaded it after I completed it. So I'll be glad to send it. I've sent it to dozens of folks from UF so far. So basic information, it tells you, this is when we look at all these things, right? Your background, right? Your personal information. This is mostly for the IAE. We are expected to look into the details of the projects. So this is the project detail, right? I'm proposing to teach a course, and then I'm proposing to research my research and all these attachments, right? Your project statement, your CV. So all these things come later on. Let me quickly go through. So this is a proposal. This is a project, right? So that's the title of my teaching course. It's a graduate course. I taught it for the first time ever there in Jeju National University. And this is my research. So this is where I mentioned you need to be very sharp, very pithy, carefully conveying why you're doing this and what are you going to get back and what your host institution is going to get back. So all this information carefully developed, my teaching, my research, and service. For a good measure, I also threw in, by the way, when I'm there, I will train local NGO leaders. And then what are the outcomes I'm anticipating from this and benefit to my host, my discipline, my applicant, to myself, my home institution, University of Florida. All these things are part of your application, right? So the key point is your project, your proposal, basically, right? So to me, I think that the 3 ingredients for my success is the project itself is very relevant because I discussed with my local, my contacts, and they helped me in shaping it up, and also they provided strong letters of support. By the way, at the end of the packet is the letter of support, and so on, so forth. My professional impact quickly, it is, I'm not exaggerating, but Fulbright was life-changing in so many ways, professionally, personally. Although I didn't take my family, obviously it was during the holidays, my family visited me. and so on, so on, and so forth. So, the cultural immersion opportunity and the very fact that you will be a part of this cohort of international educators, that itself is a tremendous boost that let me do more international research and continue in the trajectory and so on, so on, and so forth. And several other outcomes. So these are the outcomes beyond just Fulbright. Publications. I actually got a grant from the US Embassy directly as a result of this Fulbright and so on and so forth. Let me stop there and go into Q&A if you have any questions. Silence.
I'm not sure if anyone can hear me. I've got a
Yes, we
question.
can hear you. Right.
You know, yeah.
Okay. When you're selecting a country, both of you mentioned learning about some of the statistics numbers around the country. Do you know where you might start by finding out the kind of information about applications to the country beyond what's available directly on the website?
Probably your contacts in the country, because obviously, even if you met somebody in a conference, international conference, you exchange your card, you made some formal or informal connection. That's a great starting point. You can start, writing to them, contact them and tell them you are interested in the Fulbright and you're exploring the opportunity and that's when you ask them about the local educational system and all those details. And then obviously, if you identify a host institution, nowadays in website you can find out all the courses they offer and the faculty and so on and so forth. That's another way of doing it also. I mean, even if you do not have the connection, if you identify a country after you go through the catalog, just look at some universities and your department and find out potential contacts.
Yeah, ask around. What we often find out from countries, like we always like the Fulbright committee can ask around too. So we have more than a few people been to South Korea. So we would say, okay, where have you been? Which are the, or South Africa in my case. But I've helped people from, and I think the first thing is to get an understanding of the institutions of that country from anybody who knows more than you do. So, we often, that's where UFIC can come in really handy. Different groups have different sets of experts. So there's a Global Food Systems Institute has different groups working on regions. There's a bunch of Middle Eastern countries that a bunch of us work in. So, I was looking at Jordan, pre the situation right now. But the idea was so that we were looking through people's, okay, who's worked in Jordan? What institutions are there? And you just kind of get a lay of the land. That's why UF is nice, because you should ask around. And UFIC, usually Claire's the one who, the other person I'd contact would be Claire. Say, I'm thinking of doing this. Who do you know? And Claire knows everybody. So therefore, that's the first point, is to try to get some knowledge about that in general. From, again, is you pretty much everybody UF is 1 degree separated from anybody else you need to talk to. So yeah, it just depends on where you're going. Stability versus ease of getting around versus schools there's so many questions. You just have to start somewhere.
Thank you so much.
I have a question, and I have to admit that I wasn't able to join until later, so I didn't get to hear Greg's part of the presentation. So if you said this, just tell me. But I'm curious about what a multi-site project Fulbright might look like. Is there something like some examples you can give of that, or maybe I missed that?
Question is, doesn't matter as long as it's one country, multi-site doesn't really matter that much. If it's multi-country, then you do need to kind of think that through. You can, of course, get a Fulbright to one country. Let's just say South Africa. So South Africa, and you want to go to Zimbabwe and meet. There are other monies sometimes, even in Fulbright, that'll pay some of your travel to get up there to work with them. But you usually locate out of one place. Now, if you're multiple sites in one country, that's not a problem. If you're trying to go there, or like if you're wanting to work, I knew a bunch of people in South Africa, so I said a bunch of people, like when I got letters of recommendation, letters of invitation, I called up all my friends and were like, write me a letter of invitation. So I had one from like Sandparks. Then I had 3 other universities that I was going to work with, but I was still located at UKZN. And so I was able to say, oh, I'll be here and here, but I'm also going to be, that's how I'm going to execute my research. So as long as it's in one country, that's easy. If you're not, then you probably still want to locate base out of one.
Elizabeth, I can send you the recording when it's ready.
Thank you. That would be fantastic. I appreciate that.
And timing awards, we talked about flex awards. They're the ones that like go over the summer. So you can go there for like 2 months, 2 months, and 2 months over 3 years. So they'll do those too. So yeah, they've really tried to make it so that it's more Fulbright specialists, 1 month to 3 months. So if you're just super short term, you just want to kind of get over there and start working with them, then Fulbright specialists might be better to start. And then, yes, you could use the Fulbright specialist to ramp you into a Fulbright Scholar Award too. Might be a year later. Kumaran, do you know any of the rules about, like, it used to be you could only have 3 in your life, then they went saying, no, you had to wait a certain period between Fulbright. What's the current, do you know the current rules?
2 years.
What?
2 years.
2 years. Okay, so you got a Fulbright specialist. You have to wait 2 years, and then you can put the Fulbright award in. Right? So that people have done that before, because you get over there for a month or two. It's a lot less. You're usually building over time. The Fulbright specialist gets you there, gets you everybody, face to face to work out things. You might still be putting other grant applications in too, right? Fulbright's just one of many that you might be putting in to State Department or to other places.
I think with the Fulbright specialist, I can check this again. There's no waiting time.
Oh, okay, good.
It's the Scholar Award.
As a scholar, because it used to be, I think they want,
Yeah.
because for a while they had a thing that they said, well, they've changed this a lot. They said you can only have 3 Fulbrights over your life and Fulbright specialists count. But then they changed it to like, no, you got to wait. And so they always watch that because they keep changing them to try, because they were getting a lot of repeat applicants. Like, so Kumaran and I would be like, Fulbright, we're going to put in again. We'll switch countries or do something else. But they want to also be, and they almost always say that they are going to give preference to people who've never had a Fulbright. So, but I don't, that's kind of back and forth. That seems to come very strong other times not. So you just got to look at the rules. They do change the rules every once in a while. Like today, I just saw they want American studies now, maybe for the 250th. Sure, what the heck, right? It's their money. They get to decide how they want to do it. So that doesn't mean that they only give Fulbrights out on that topic, but if that's of interest, then great.
Yeah, I think this is where you need to be careful about the high volume country. Like all the European countries, many applications for limited number of grants. Whereas there are several countries where when we reviewed, there was one person, I don't want to tell which countries, this was the 3rd Fulbright she's applying for. Guess what? There's nobody who applied for that country. So she was a winner. Obviously, the quality of the application was fantastic as well. But yes, although we are told priorities given for first-time applicants or those who have never received a Fulbright award, but there are countries where, believe it or not, there are not many applications. So you need to be very careful in choosing the country. Obviously, everybody wants to go for high volume, high demand countries like European countries and so on and so forth. So that's another consideration you need to keep in mind while you're preparing and then while you're putting your pieces together and making connections with the host institutions as well.
Yeah, I looked really hard at Mauritius because their basic country profile looked really fun. And I was like, oh, that looks like a lot of fun. I knew that Mauritius was not getting a huge number of people coming in, but they were working in areas that I was interested in. And they had a thing about, oh yeah, you can get, the cabins on the beach with very low price. And I remember thinking, this is pretty interesting sounding. Anyway, it was great. I remember looking hard at Mauritius though. Remember, almost every country in the world has some type of Fulbright program, except for countries we tend to be in conflict with.
But like both of us mentioned, everything boils down to that 5-page proposal you're making.
It's
right?
really
So,
important. Both in the personal statement as well, right? It's kind of a proposal and a personal statement. They both matter an awful lot. Really, really spend time. First thing I always tell people, don't clip parts of a federal grant into you might take a sentence. I go to ChatGPT and just boil it down to some sentences because it is not going to be well received if it's technically obtuse. Got a chat. Is there a particular pushback for applying to countries that you have a double citizenship from? No. No, I don't think so. So we've played that up before. I remember reading some that they say, oh, who is it? Who usually gives a Fulbright talk? Robert Ree, right? He was always the one who was like, hey, I was originally from Korea and I'm coming back. And that's a really nice perspective. So no, that I don't think it hurts at all.
No.
So yeah, what I always say is, what's your pitch? What's your angle that makes you memorable in a good way? So whatever that is, I've gone away. I always think, what's your story? I came to the US young and I want to come back and talk. Sure, but just don't come back and save them, right? The Fulbright's a cultural exchange. It's a scientific exchange. So, what's the story we want to tell in this? And that's really quite important. One guy, I remember we had one guy who was putting to a Fulbright postdoc and he wanted to work in Cuba, but he wanted to work, it was through Spain. And so we crafted how Spaniards thought of Cuba. He was kind of a historian. So we set up this very bank shot style proposal, but it really worked when we finished, because at first it was like, I'm going to be working in Cuba. Then you're like, well, wait, Cuba doesn't have Fulbrights. So they really talked to it from Cuba from a Spanish perspective. And so it really was about Spain, not Cuba, but we thought we really worked a lot on it together. He ended up getting it because I think it was a very interesting subject for people in Spain and it was memorable. So yeah, you just have to get a lot of people to think about it. That's really critical. Don't just, if you toss one together, you're going to take your chances. But if you get more people to read it and talk it through and work some angles, you can have a very competitive proposal. UF usually leads the country in getting them. We're always a top Fulbright producer, meaning we have some of the highest around. So we actually are quite successful at getting Fulbrights.
There's another question. Can you do 2 applications in different categories?
No, you get one. Just pick one and go. One country, no, you can't apply to 2. You cannot have 2 Fulbright applications. You just pick one. You can switch next year if you don't make the first, but nope, one. You get one per, and pretty much one country too. Don't try to bank shot it that way where you have like, I'm going to work here and here. It usually gets very convoluted unless it's a regional one. Like there's a East African regional perspective and then read the guide. Then of course, then you might be able to do that, but only when they ask for it. But like teaching research, pick your favorite and go. They don't have one preference over another. Sometimes the countries will tell it to you in the country profile. We want teaching proposals, or we'll take research or teaching, or we'll take whatever. Some countries are like, no, don't even bother if it's not a teaching proposal. They need teachers. I think we're at time. We're close.
There are no more questions, and thank you everyone so much for spending your time with us. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Kumaran, again for another very informative session. And I'm always here if you have questions. I can reach out to Kumaran or Greg to ask them, or you can reach out to them directly if you need if you have other questions. I can reach out to IIE to ask for you. So just let me know.
Yeah, if you're
Thank
putting
you
in
all
this
so
year,
much.
start soon.
All right.
Thank you,
Thank
folks.
you.
Bye.